Kristen Medeiros. Today's guest is Steve Gallegos. Steve describes himself not as a success story, but as a before and after story, one that a lot of people recognize themselves in. He grew up believing he was already behind, already not enough, already failing at a script he did not write. That belief eventually became dangerous, leading to a suicide attempt as a teenager. Shortly after surviving that moment, Steve ran away from home and joined the United States Marine Corps, not out of patriotism, but because it felt like the only way to escape a story that was slowly killing him. From there, his life took many turns: law enforcement, law school, trial attorney, business owner, author, speaker, and all along, he was also pursuing a singing career, believing that if he could just be good enough, talented enough, admired enough, then love and validation would finally come. What makes Steve's work different is that he does not just talk about success or motivation, he teaches people how to fire the inner director running their life on autopilot and reclaim authorship. He uses a cinematic framework to help people stop auditioning for approval and start directing their own lives. This is so exciting. Steve, welcome to Flying Upstream.
Kristen, thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm excited to be here with you and your beautiful audience.
Amazing. Okay, let's get into it. So
Absolutely.
before we talk about the work that you do now, take us back to 17-year-old Steve. What was happening internally that led you to a place where life felt unbearable?
Are you sure you want to go there, Kristen?
Let's do it.
Yeah, 17-year-old Steve, there was a lot going on that Steve didn't understand, right? That I didn't understand. I had no clue what was going on. All I knew is what I was experiencing and what I was feeling, but I didn't have any framework for that. So the only thing I could tell you, it was absolutely miserable. I grew up like many people do, right? I'm not saying that I'm the only one that's ever been through this or the only one that will ever go through this, but I grew up in a very abusive household. We're talking physical abuse, mental abuse, but beyond that, right? Beyond all the physical pain, I think what hurt the most was the mere indifference that I felt at being told that I was worthless, good for nothing, and I was essentially without value. My parents constantly asked, you know, they said things like, you know, we should have never had you, right? And said things like, the things I could have done if it weren't for you, right? Things I could have done in my life. And like I said, I had no framework for this. I had no understanding of why this, but all I knew is that this intake of information that I was receiving, the negative feelings just led me to believe that, okay, I'm worthless, good for nothing. And I started questioning, why am I here? What is my value? I have no worth, right? I believed all that. And so I made several attempts to take my life. And at each time, at each attempt to do this, I didn't hear a voice necessarily, but I felt like an inner prompting, right? That was suggesting to me, no, there's something different, there's something better. Though I had no clear vision what that looked like or what that could be. So at the first opportunity, when I turned 17, again, I had no prospects of going to college. I had no trade, that I wanted to pursue and to get a job or anything like that. So I knew that I was probably going to end up in jail or on the streets. And so I did the next best thing. I jumped out of the frying pan into the fire and joined the Marine Corps, right? And it was during that 13-week boot camp period that I really found out that everything I had been led to believe about myself, everything I had been told about myself up to that point by the parents and teachers, etc., was a complete lie, right? And that was my starting point.
Yeah, that, I mean, that's a rough starting point for sure. And what I appreciate about your story is that, you, as you mentioned, you had another voice in your head saying, hey, you can get through this. And going into the Marine Corps is a huge step, as you said. That's not just like, oh, let me just float along in life. That's
Right.
really, really diving in. What did that boot camp, those 13 weeks there, what did that strip away from you? And what did it begin to rebuild?
That's a great question. What did it strip away from me? What did it begin to rebuild? Before I answer that, I want to go back something you mentioned about that voice in my head. Again, it wasn't a very clear voice like, yes, I could see whatever little angel standing on my shoulder and saying, no, Steve, don't do this, right? It was more like an inner knowing, but it was supported by a book I had been given by my then high school girlfriend, a book called The Power of Positive Thinking by Norman Vincent Peale. And in it, he suggests that you could change your thoughts. And those were the 7 words from the whole book, right? I'm pretty sure I read a lot of it, if not all of it. And I maybe understood almost nothing of it, right? Because again, I'm in turmoil, I'm in crisis. But there were 7 words that stuck with me, Kristen. And those 7 words were change your thoughts and change your world, right? Now, I didn't know anything that about thoughts that you could actually what change them, but I knew that I could change my world. And so those were the words I hung on to, and which is why, okay, change my world. I had run away from home before and it felt good. It felt liberating. I felt free. I felt like I had escaped this abusive environment that I was in, even though it was only temporary. So I said, okay, how can I do that now legitimately where I don't have to come back? And so the Marine Corps felt like a great option. So now to get to the core of your question, it happened that when I got to the Marine Corps, and as a lot of people know, when you join the military, they break you down. They break you down into almost nothing. Why? Not just for the sake of breaking you down, but so they can build you up into the man, the soldier, the leader that the military wants you to be. And I was already there. I was already broken. So all they had to do was go, and I would fall over, right? That's how weak and broken I already was. So they didn't have much work to do in that realm. Um, but there happened, and this is the fun part of the experience. Uh, there happened to be 3 other individuals in my training class that were primarily Spanish speaking. And Spanish is my first language, having been born in Chile. And I came to this country when I was legally, I might add, in today's climate, got to say that, legally when I was 7 years old. And so Spanish was also my first language, although I was very fluent in English at the time, more so than these guys were. But Kristen, they were failing the academic portion of Marine Corps boot camp. And what a lot of people may not realize is that to become a Marine doesn't just require brawn and muscle and knowing how to shoot and fight off 10 guys at a time. It requires smarts. And so the academic portion of the training is really, really big. If you don't pass that, you're out. And so these guys were failing the academic portion simply because of the language barrier. No one asked me to, no one suggested it. No one recommended that I do it, but I decided, again, an inner prompting that I should mentor these guys. I didn't call it mentoring. I said, let me help you. And so at night, when everybody else had gone to sleep, the 4 of us would wake up, go to the showers of the barracks, and we would sit on the cold, musty tile floor. This was in South Carolina, Parris Island, South Carolina. So it was muggy, hot, middle of summer. And we would be sitting there on the floor and we are taking out notebooks and we would take that day's materials where I would translate it into Spanish and we'd have a discussion so I knew they understood it. And about 2 weeks into this experience, all of a sudden it just started thundering and raining on us in the form of the drill instructor. At about 2:30 in the morning while we're in this, he comes in thinking that he's going to take down this enemy stronghold, right? Because he woke up for some reason, heard voices coming from the showers. Okay. Now imagine that you're a drill instructor and you hear voices, right, coming from the shower. What are you thinking? You're thinking there's a bunch of Marines and they're doing whatever, right? Some stupid, weird stuff. And so that's what he thought he was going to catch us red-handed doing something illegal, to say the least. And so when he came in yelling, screaming, cussing, and we're like scared the crap out of us, right? And so by the time I put my heart back into my chest and I stood up and explained what we were doing, he looked at us like a wolf that has lost his meal, right? He thought he was going to have this easy sheep to eat. And he just looked at us like in disbelief and he said, all right, carry on. And so we did. And as a result of that experience, fast forward to graduation time or after the exams, I ended up number one in the class from a academic standpoint, and my three friends graduated in the top 10. And
Wow.
and as a result, because of what I did, I was awarded the platoon honor man position, which is the equivalent of the university valedictorian. I was awarded the that beautiful blue dress blue uniform that the Marines are known for worldwide. My first rank to private first class, and this beautiful watch that they gave me. I'm not wearing it now, but it's a gorgeous watch. And again, this wasn't something that I was after. I didn't sign up for this. I didn't seek this. I didn't know I was getting any kind of an award. I just did it out of, come to find out, service. And so that particular experience and being awarded and rewarded for what I did, having taken my eyes off myself and helping others, led me to create my first philosophy of life, which is what I still live by today, which is if I help others achieve their dreams, then my dreams will ultimately come true.
Well, Steve, what I really just is so feels so heartfelt to me about your story is that you grew up in a highly abusive environment. You had, I'm going to guess, very little kindness shown to you as a child.
Zero.
And even with that upbringing, there was still something in you that said, let me reach out and help these other people. You could have easily given to others what you had been given, right? Physical abuse, emotional abuse, all of that. You could have easily paid it forward, as you will. But
Right.
instead, you didn't, and I think that's something that you can't teach. That's something that is inside, it's inside all of us, whether we know it or not, but it's there. And that's the really significant piece of the story for me is that despite your upbringing, you still had that feeling, that motivation, that drive to help others, even though you had not been shown that yourself. And I think
Correct.
that's incredible. Yeah.
Yeah. And I love that you pointed that out because your audience listening, as you just said so wisely, Kristen, is that we all have that inside of us. So if we all have that ability to show compassion, love, and understanding for another human being, for nature, for an animal, yet we also have the dark side, right? Which is we all have the ability to take life and to be abusive. We all have it, right? And for some of us, that rises more often than the kindness part does, right? I mean, and for anybody listening who says, oh no, I could never hurt a flea. Well, if you're a parent, let something happen to your child, let someone take your child um, captive right in front of you. Are you just going to sit there and be kind? No. The mama bear is going to come out, the papa bear is going to come out, and you're going to do everything in your power that you didn't think you could do previously, right? Harm another human being, all out of love to protect your child. And so, under the proper circumstances, right, those kinds of energies, that type of energy is appropriate to use. And other times, we just use it by default because that's what we grew up, like you just pointed out, right? I grew up seeing abuse, I grew up being abused. And so, I could have very easily said, all right, well, that's what love is, right? It's you beat the crap out of your spouse or your partner, then you turn around and you say you're sorry and I love you and everything's good until the next time, right?
Right.
And a lot of people grow up seeing their parents fight and bicker and argue and use aggression towards each other. And this is programming, right? Before the age of 7, Kristen, we don't know the difference. And so after the age of 7, we've accepted all of this input from what our parents believe life is and should be like and how we should react and respond to situations. And so that's how we respond. So at 7, 8 years old, we go to school and we don't like the kid because they look wrong. They look at us wrong. They speak funny. They're fat. They're skinny. They talk different. They look different. And so what? We beat up on them. We become the bully, right? Because that's how we were raised. But we don't know that. We're only 7, 8, 9 years old. We don't know. But somebody comes and tells us, don't do that. And we're like, okay. And we keep doing it. Why? Because that's our training, that's our nature. But it doesn't have to be like that.
Yeah, agreed, agreed. Um, and just to come back to your story, uh, because you after the Marines, you continued on in your career, and one could say you were leveling up, right? You went into law enforcement, you became a trial attorney. From the outside, it looked like upward momentum. Internally, though, were you feeling aligned or still running the script written by someone else?
No, I hadn't, and to be honest with you, I'm still not fully aligned. I still make mistakes and I'm still searching, right? I'm still asking those questions. And they're very important questions. They're very different questions that I'm asking now than I did back when I was 17, 20, 25 years old, right? But yes, my trajectory took me from the Marine Corps to law enforcement, which at the time was an obvious transition, right, from the military to civilian law enforcement. And then, but what led me into law, and this is what fascinates a lot of people, is I didn't want to become a lawyer for the sake of being a lawyer. Yeah, truth and justice, all that. Yeah, rah, rah, rah. And I was all for that, but that wasn't the reason. The reason is because I was pursuing a career at the time as a singer, songwriter, entertainer, and recording artist.
Ah,
I wanted to be the modern day Julio Iglesias for the audience members who know that name, Enrique's father. Um, and it's because, again, going back to my childhood, I said that there was nothing that I could do that was of value of worth in anybody's eyes that was considered an adult at the time. But there was one thing, Kristen, that I could do where the world stopped in my eyes. They applauded, they admired me, and they said, more, we want more. And that's when I opened my mouth to sing. I had been given this gift to sing and communicate using my singing voice. And so I did that as a kid, and everybody applauded and, yay, more, all this stuff at school, at home. I remember numerous times my mother's friends would come over for tea, right, afternoon tea, and visit in the afternoon, and she'd call me down from my cave, if you will, my cage, which was my bedroom, and ask me to sing or demand that I sing for the neighbors, and they were in awe, right? And so as I became like a Pavlov dog, right? You ring the bell and you start salivating because the bell equates food. And so every time that I got the opportunity to sing in front of someone, I equated that with getting love and respect and admiration. And so early on as a kid, I thought, okay, that's how you get love in this world. I can't get it by doing anything else. And certainly at 4 years old, I can't put a new roof on the house to please my parents. So I'm going to grow up and be a singer. Right. And then I saw all these singers, all these superstars, right? They're on stage in concert and they're getting adoration and love and fame and fortune and all this attention. And so I said, yay, that's what I want. So in the Marine Corps, I started singing professionally when I was in Hawaii. I got to be featured on several television shows there, and I played in local clubs. And then when I got out, I kept pursuing that, but I needed a job in the meantime, and so that's why I was a police officer. And through that, I got an opportunity to work with a judge in the Santa Barbara Superior Court in California. And the judge was a former entertainer, and he knew of my aspirations. We become friends. He became a mentor. And he said, lawyers are the ones that run the entertainment industry. So if you go to law school, which I think you have an aptitude for, become a lawyer. Now you can walk through, open doors and walk through doors that you could never open as a one in a million singer songwriter. I thought, what a great idea. and I can wear Armani suits too. Woo, right? So I could make money, right? Good money, and pursue my singing career. So that's why I did it, right? I went to law school. I applied myself. I passed the California bar the first time around, and then I moved to Los Angeles and I started practicing entertainment law. And over time, I started acquiring clients and um, opening those doors. But then, Christian, is I got to see the other side, the underside of the belly, if you will, of the beast. Because everything you've heard about the entertainment industry, whether it's music, television, film, theater, there's a lot of abuse. There's a lot of people taking advantage of others. There's a lot of uh, sexual abuse, mental abuse that goes on there because there's a power dynamic, right? We want something. We want the stage. We want the opportunity. What are we willing to give in exchange for that opportunity? So a lot of my clients came to me with stories of things that happened to them that we couldn't go to the media with, we couldn't file lawsuits for because they'd be afraid of being blacklisted and never work in the industry again. I personally went through some of those same kinds of abuses. And so I had to come to terms with why do I want to be in this industry that is so negative and vile in many ways. And as I took a deep dive into that, Kristen, is how I learned that I was pursuing it for the wrong reasons. And I know that many listeners are doing things in their lives for what they think is a specific reason, or they're seeking a certain outcome, but it's the wrong path because they're pursuing it for the wrong reasons, whether it's a relationship, a career, a job, or something else. Um, I was looking for that external validation that I thought you got by being on stage. I was looking for people to love me, admire me, respect me because that's how I thought that you got it. And once I learned that that's what I was looking for, I wasn't at the point yet, even though I'm in my late 30s at this point. I didn't get to the point quite yet of realizing I don't need that externally. I thought, there's got to be a better way, a different way to get it, if not the music industry. So I left the music industry altogether. I abandoned the practice of law for a while, and I set my sights on becoming a commercial photographer. Reinvented myself in Dallas to do that. And I had a great time. I had a great career. I had a great business and following, but yet I was pursuing something. I was doing it to get that external validation. And it wasn't until 2008 when I attended a conference in Las Vegas, a personal development conference, where the speaker on stage put up a chart of Professor Maslow's hierarchy of needs. He says every human being on the planet has these seven core needs, which include self-esteem, security, um, and there's others. Love is among those. And he says, if you're looking for anything on this chart, Kristen, means you don't have it. And if you don't have it, how can you give it away? Now think about that. In an instant, it hit me. Have you ever been hit by lightning?
No.
No. But I haven't either. But I imagined at that moment what it would have felt like to get hit by lightning because almost as soon as he said that, it was like he was speaking directly to me. And I stood up in a front of a room of 300 people at the Hilton Hotel Ballroom in Las Vegas. And I said, are you effing kidding me? I mean, I didn't raise my hand or anything, Kristen. I just shut up. Are you effing kidding me? And the whole room turns and so who is this guy, crazy guy, right? And the speaker's looking at me. I said, all my life, I've been looking for love, respect, and admiration. You tell me that the reason I don't have it and the reason I'm chasing it is because I don't have it, right? And he says, that's right. And then he gave me an example. If you have a friend that needs $1,000 and you only have 100 in your pocket, can you help your friend? No. So the lesson being that if we're looking for love, respect, admiration, acceptance from other people, means we don't have it. And until we have it, we can't give it away. So that means if you're in a relationship listening to this and you're constantly fighting for your partner to give you that attention to tell you how beautiful or handsome or strong or smart or gorgeous or intelligent or desirable you are, that has to come from within first. And once you're able to find that from within and say, I love me like I do today, right? I say, I love me. I don't need anybody else to tell me
Mhm.
that
Yeah.
I'm valuable, that I have worth, that I have talent and skills, and I'm, good looking and healthy and all these things, right? I know that. So if it comes, right, like my wife tells me all the time how amazing I am, I love it, I accept it, I receive it. But she doesn't tell me that because I'm a needy guy that needs to hear it, right? That I'm so broken that she needs to feed me because when we expect that kind of when we obligate our spouses, our partners, our children, or whoever is in our lives to feed us like that, there's going to come a time when they get sick, when they forget, when they're too busy, and life gets in the way, and they're going to forget. And we're going to think, oh, they don't love me, right? Or, they don't care about me simply because they forgot about my birthday or anniversary or something like that. And that's not it at all. They just got busy. But because we're so needy, we don't see that, right? We only see it's like we're gasping for air for that breath that comes from other people. But no, love yourself, recognize that love comes from within first. And I teach other people how to treat me, I teach other people how to love me. If I respect myself, they're going to respect me. If I love myself, they're going to love me. Not in a romantic sense, but that means they're going to treat me like a human being. So that was the big lesson, and that didn't happen until 2008.
It's a big lesson to learn. Like
Huge.
that's like a lifelong lesson.
Yeah,
And it's one of those things that's easy to talk about, easy to explain, difficult to really
experience.
internalize for yourself and
Hmm.
truly make that leap yourself, especially if you have been taught as a child in whatever way you are not good enough, right? You're not good looking enough, you're not smart enough, you're not fast enough, you're not skinny enough, whatever it looks like. Like that not good enough is so hard to spin the dial in the other direction and turn it towards you for self-love.
Correct. Correct.
Yeah.
And this is what we need to understand is that prior to the age of 7, as I mentioned before, you're programmed with all this stuff, much like when we buy the latest, greatest smartphone, iPhone. It comes to you with some apps, with some information on it nowadays, but then you have to load it up with the apps that you want so that the phone functions the way you want it to, right?
Right.
And so when we're kids,
Absolutely.
we're programmed to believe about God, politics, finances, whatever, you know, how to relate to other people, what love is. We're taught that and without filters. We don't question it. So when we're 7 to, 18, 20, 21, we're just reacting now to life based upon what we've been taught. And until we challenge those assumptions and until we challenge those beliefs, really, I'm good for nothing, says who? Right?
Yeah.
Really? I have no value to give to the world? Really? My only lot in life is to be a a mother? Not that that's a bad thing, but some people say, you're not never going to be a career woman. You could never be an author or, or whatever, right? Because you're a girl, right? You're dumb. You don't know anything. You're Hispanic. What do you know? You have an accent. How could you ever be, a congressman or run a big CEO of a company, and those kinds of things. And so those limiting beliefs that we have when we're in our 20s and 30s, those came from somewhere, folks. And so I invite you to sit down, as I know that Kristen does in her shows, is to examine that, look at that belief that is holding you back, that you've been repeating over and over again every day of the last 30, 40 years of your life, and examine it and say, where did that come from? Is it true? And chances are it's not true. I can guarantee you 100% it's not true. Because each one of you was created for a reason. Each one of you were created with love, with value, with compassion, with heart, and with the capacity to do great things in this world. But yet we've allowed other people through no fault of our own. But now that you've listened to this episode and you step forward tomorrow with the same thinking, yeah, okay, now it's your fault, okay? Because now you know that there's a different, better way, and That's what I teach in my book Unshackled, and this whole idea of becoming the director of your life.
It's so beautiful. You've clearly evolved significantly and have a lot of wise words to share. And as we kind of wind down here, I've got one last question for you. If someone listening feels like they have been performing their entire life for approval, love, or safety, what would you want them to know about who they become when they finally stop auditioning and take the director's chair?
Oh, I love that, and that's a very loaded question. Um, the first thing that happens, Christian, is that well, we need to become aware first that we're simply acting in a story, and it's true. If your life, your marriage, your relationship, your health, your fitness, your appearance, your financial situation is not what you think it should be, not what you want it to be, then I invite you, as Kristen does, to start examining that and say, okay, well, is this what I want it to be? If the answer is no, then I invite you to yell, cut, right? Just like who does that? The director. Think of your favorite film, your favorite television show. The director is in charge of that. And they don't just let the scene run amok. They have a vision for what they want that film to be. Think of Top Gun or F1, right? Two great films that had come out recent in the past couple of years, Ford versus Ferrari. They have a vision for those films and how they want those actors to portray the characters and read their lines and express their emotions. And if that's not happening, they don't just let the scene run. They yell cut. And when that happens, they call everybody over. They say, Kristen, come over. They call the wardrobe people, the actors, the writer, and they say, writer, this needs to change. Wardrobe, we need to change this costume. It's not working for this scene. Um, Catering people, you're putting too much sugar and caffeine on the table. We need to let that go, right? And I know that you're vegan. We need to get some healthy options on there, right? Enough of that sugar and animal protein and those kinds of things, right? Let's make this a healthy experience for everybody so that they can perform their best. Well, that's what we need to do is become the director in our lives. How do we do that? We recognize we're just acting out a story that somebody else wrote for us usually, right? Usually our parents or society. We need to then learn to rewrite that story. How do I want this to end? How do I want my next chapter? How do I want the next moment? How do I want the next day to unfold? And then we need to become the producer. What does the producer do? They gather all the resources necessary to make that story come to life, right? So you're the writer, you're a producer, and then the director. You supervise. You make sure and you keep an eye, not necessarily micromanaging your life or your kids or your husband, but just generally kind of take an overview. Did this day go the way I wanted it to? Right? Is my week unfolding the way that I envisioned it would? Is my month going? Is my year going? Is this career path that I chose taking me in a trajectory that I'm seeing for my life? Right? Those are the questions you ask. And so that's how you step in. And so the idea is about shifting identity, going from just the mere actor going along with life. Oh, well, that's life, right? We have its ups and downs, and I guess I'm just a victim, and life is happening to me, and I don't know. I was just minding my own business, and there this person comes, and they start yelling at me, and my boss abuses me, and it makes me work all these long hours and those kinds of things, right? Um, yeah, that's the story, but it doesn't have to be your future. You need to stop, yell cut, assemble the resources, identify, gain clarity on what you want, and then move forward in a fashion that where you want it to be, right? And this is how you stop auditioning. Auditioning is when you're like constantly seeking approval of someone else, a new date, a new suitor, a new partner, a new job, etc., etc. No, as the director, you're the one that makes the decisions.
Absolutely. Steve, I really want to thank you for the honesty, your courage, and clarity that you brought into this conversation. The way that you talk about breaking the scripts, yelling cut, even questioning those inherited stories and reclaiming authorship is deeply powerful. And I also really appreciate how you name the parts of the journey that most people are afraid to say out loud, and how you
Mm.
reminded us that nothing is wrong with us for wanting more truth or alignment or ownership of our lives. Thank you so much for sharing your story and your perspective today.
Well, thank you, Kristen, and also thank you for producing this show. I know it's not easy. It's very time consuming, and you've assembled your resources to bring to your audience, not for your own sake, but for their sake, all these beautiful minds and experiences from which they can learn. And so my hat's off to you for doing so.
It is truly my pleasure. It is awesome. All right. Thank you, Steve.